Hey guys, welcome back to the stuff. This week I'm going to give you an update on my square foot gardening, and I've also built a couple of herb shelves. If that floats your boat, stick around. Remember, while this intro is on, drop me a like and subscribe to my channel. So it's been about 6 weeks since I planted my seeds, and it's been about 4 weeks since I told you about square foot gardening. So I'm going to give you an update. I'm going to plant some of those seedlings in the garden, but we can't do that in here, so let's pop outside. So this is my square foot gardening planter. It was a concrete planter that I built in a previous video. You can check that out. It's a few videos ago. But essentially it's square feet in a grid, which I'm going to grow vegetables in. And this was the layout. So according to square foot gardening technique, this is how many I can get in each of the squares. And over the last 6 weeks, I've planted my seeds and I've been cultivating them into something I can now plant out. So this is what they look like in the trays. So obviously within square foot gardening, I'll be growing an amount of vegetables in each square foot. In order to break that square foot down even further, what I'm doing here is setting out a grid within a grid. And I'm just using some sticks in order to set out where I'm going to plant each of the plants. In this case, I'm planting some beetroot. I think in the diagram that I showed previously, I was planting 8. That should have actually been 9 because it neatly fits into 9 squares. And I'm just using a wooden pole here to open up the soil, and that's where I'm going to plant each of the beetroot plants. You obviously don't need to use a wooden stick to do this. You can just use your fingers, a trowel, or whatever you want. But once the holes are opened up, I'm just lifting out the plants from the trays and just transferring them over. One thing I did forget to do was put to water them down. These were a bit dry when I started, so I just gave them a bit of a water just to bind all the soil together. That makes them easier to pop out of their trays. And I'm just repeating that for each of the squares. So here I've already done the purple beetroots or the Bolt Hardies. Now I'm doing the golden beetroots in this. And again, that's a series of 9. And one of the things I should have said with the beetroot, I put a cluster of seeds into the seed trays. And when I'm transferring them over here, I'm actually thinning them out as I go. So what I want is maybe a clump of three beetroots, and then that'll get me a nice clump of like golf ball size beetroots when they get to like baby beetroot size. I'm not going to let these go too big. So 2 or 3 in each of the squares is what I'm aiming for. And like I say, just repeating that for all of the plants. Here I'm doing some spring onions. I'm splitting those out into individual spring onions. I've not put a grid here. I didn't have enough sticks, but essentially I'm putting 16 holes in the square foot, splitting my spring onions out and filling all of the holes. In this corner, I'm doing French beans, and that needs 6. So obviously, I'm only using 6 spaces to put them in. Again, lift them out, put them in. It follows the same thing all the way throughout, but essentially what you're looking for is just a grid within a grid, and that is how you split down each of the square feet. And this is what the square foot garden looks like after I've planted them all in. You can see I've got my lettuce there, my spring onions, my beetroot, my chard, my rocket, my beans, my pepper plant, my oriental greens. And that is all looking smashing. Here we are a couple of weeks later. So this is actually 6 weeks after seeds have been planted and a couple of weeks after I planted them out in the garden. You can see everything's starting to look really good. The beetroots are starting to look a bit healthy. They're getting that sort of like beetroot leaf look to them. My lettuces have started, those ones that are going to go red have started to go red. And all of the sort of other lettuce, those ones are again some red ones and some oriental greens, all looking really healthy. The reason I've got the net on there is because my neighbour's cat uses this as a big kitty litter when I first built it. So I've put those over there, keep the birds off, keep the cats off, but everything's looking really good. I have lost a couple of my French beans. I've only got a couple of those left, but overall everything's looking healthy. And because mainly because I can't help myself, and I want to grow as much as I can, I've also started to grow some herbs, and I've grown those in some shelves on my fence. And this is a good top tip for if you've got a small garden. Start growing vertically, just increases your space. So I've built these shelves. So for the shelves, once again, I'm using a bit of decking. I seem to have quite a lot of this left around, even though I don't actually have a deck in my garden. I've used it for the tops of my concrete planters. I've built a decking planter out of it, and now I'm using it for some shelving. Very versatile, comes in really handy. But I'm just cutting that to length on the table saw. Obviously, I'm fitting them in a specific location, so I'm cutting it to the length that I want, and then once I've cut it to the length that I want, I'm using some other offcuts to cut some 45-degree angles, which I'll use then to hang the shelves from the fence, and I'm attaching those with some glue and some screws after I've pre-drilled each of the boards. And then just to fill in that gap at the back, I'm just running off another strip of the decking board and gluing and screwing that together, and that forms just a really simple basic shelf. And I'm giving that a coat of clear shed paint or shed varnish that I had in my shed, and that'll just give it a bit of protection, cure the open air ends, that sort of thing. And that is pretty much a shelf. The only thing I'm doing is putting on these keyhole hangers, and that's going to be what I'm hanging the shelves on the vents with. And that means then I can screw in some screws, and after a bit of jiggery pokery and missing the screws entirely and pushing it on the floor, I can actually hang the shelves where they're supposed to go. And that means I can then put out my coriander and my dill. I've got some empty ones there. That'll be for some follow-on seeds, so I'll plant some seeds in there once my dill and coriander have been used up, so I can then plant new set, use up that, and use up the other stuff. And that is me going vertical. So there we have it. That was an update on my square foot gardening. It's all going great. And also a nice little project if you want to extend your growing space, grow upwards. And next time we check in on square foot gardening, I'll have some more stuff to show you and some more ideas, I guess. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. But for now, that's it. So what's left to do? Celebrate with a beer. So I've got an Arbor Cafe Creme, which is a coffee and chocolate stout. Wow, it's thick and tastes of coffee. Remember, you stay safe, get some stuff done.